Miguel Santos had learned very early that life in Cebu City was not gentle to those born with empty hands. Every morning before the sun fully rose, he would wake up on the thin mat he shared with his younger sister in a small rented room near the old port. The sound of jeepneys starting their engines mixed with the salty air from the sea. His mother was already awake, preparing rice and packing what little food she could sell later on the streets. Since his father's death years ago, silence had replaced laughter in their home, and responsibility had quietly settled on Miguel's shoulders. Miguel was only a boy, but he worked like a man. After school, instead of playing with friends, he helped his mother carry a wooden cart loaded with boiled corn and bananas. His hands were often rough, his slippers worn thin, yet he never complained. What kept him going was the guitar his father had left behind. It had a cracked body and strings that often went out of tune, but to Miguel it was priceless. At night, when Cebu City slowed down and the noise softened, he would sit near the window and play softly. He sang low, careful not to disturb neighbors, pouring his heart into melodies he barely understood but deeply felt. Music became his hiding place. When hunger tightened his chest or when classmates laughed at his faded uniform, Miguel remembered the songs. One song, in particular, stayed with him, Hotel California. He didn't know much about its history, but something in its sound felt mysterious and heavy, like a story full of longing. He practiced it over and over, shaping the words with his own pain and hope. Sometimes, while singing, he imagined his father listening, smiling proudly somewhere beyond the night sky. One afternoon, while passing a small internet cafe, Miguel overheard people talking about auditions for America's Got Talent. The words felt unreal, like they belonged to another world. America was far away, and AGT was something he had only seen in short clips on borrowed phones. He stood outside the cafe longer than he should have, listening. The idea followed him home, echoing in his mind. That night, he told his mother about it in a hesitant voice. She smiled gently, though worry filled her eyes. She didn't laugh. Instead, she touched his shoulder and told him that dreams were free, even if life was not. Days passed, and Miguel started busking near the port to earn a little extra money. Tourists walked by, some stopping, most ignoring him. Still, he sang. His voice grew stronger, shaped by rejection and endurance. Each coin dropped into his small container felt like proof that someone had listened. Sometimes, strangers told him he had a special voice. Other times, they barely looked his way. Miguel accepted both with quiet humility. When the opportunity finally came to audition, it felt like a storm inside him. Fear battled hope. He had no proper clothes, no training, no confidence, only his voice and a song. On the day he left Cebu City, he hugged his mother tightly. She whispered that no matter what happened, she was already proud. That moment burned into Miguel's heart more than any applause ever could. As he stepped onto the long journey that would take him far from the streets that raised him, Miguel carried more than a guitar. He carried hunger, loss, courage, and an unbreakable belief that one honest song could cross oceans. He didn't know if the world would listen, but he knew he would sing, not for fame, not for money, but to let his story be heard. The moment Miguel Santos stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage, the bright lights felt heavier than the Cebu City sun. His heart pounded so loudly he wondered if the microphones could hear it. The theater was massive, nothing like the small streets near the port where he usually sang. Rows of people stretched endlessly before him, their faces blurred by nerves and light. He tightened his grip on his old guitar, the same one that had traveled with him across oceans, and took a slow breath to steady his shaking hands. Simon Cowell glanced down at his notes, then back at Miguel. His expression was neutral, unreadable. Miguel introduced himself in a soft voice, his accent clear, his words simple. When asked where he was from, he said, "Cebu City, Philippines," and a gentle murmur rippled through the audience. He explained briefly that he sang on the streets to help his family. Simon nodded politely, clearly having heard many stories like this before. There was curiosity, but also skepticism. Miguel felt it immediately. As silence settled, Miguel closed his eyes for a second. He remembered his mother's hands on his shoulders, the smell of the sea, the quiet nights singing by the window. Then he began to play. The first notes of Hotel California floated out, slow and controlled. His voice entered softly, almost fragile, yet filled with something deeper than fear. Within seconds, the room changed. Conversation stopped. People leaned forward. The song didn't sound rehearsed or copied, it sounded lived. Miguel's voice carried pain shaped by years of struggle. Each line felt like a confession, each note soaked in longing. His tone rose and fell naturally, not technically perfect, but honest. Simon's eyebrows lifted slightly. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. One judge glanced at another, eyes wide. The audience sat frozen, as if afraid to break the spell. As Miguel reached the chorus, his voice grew stronger. The emotion poured out uncontrollably now, and he no longer tried to hold it back. It felt as if he wasn't singing to impress the judges, but to survive. Some audience members wiped tears from their eyes. A woman in the front row covered her mouth in disbelief. The song felt new, reborn through a boy who had known hardship too early in life. Simon's expression had completely changed. The skepticism faded, replaced by surprise and respect. He watched Miguel carefully, recognizing something rare, truth. When the final notes echoed through the theater, there was a brief moment of silence, heavy and electric. Miguel lowered his head, unsure of what he had done, unsure of what would come next. Then the audience erupted. Applause thundered through the room, rising to a standing ovation. Miguel looked up, shocked, his eyes filling with tears. The judges stood as well. Simon slowly rose to his feet, shaking his head in disbelief. The poor boy from Cebu City had done something extraordinary. Without flashy moves or perfect polish, Miguel had reached straight into the hearts of everyone present, proving that emotion, when real, is stronger than anything else. Miguel stood frozen as the applause continued to crash over him like waves. His ears rang, his hands trembled, and for a moment he forgot where he was. The faces in front of him were no longer strangers, they were people who had felt his story. Tears slid down his cheeks as he tried to bow politely, the way his mother had taught him, but emotion kept pulling him apart. He had sung his truth, and now the world was responding in a way he never imagined. Simon Cowell was the first to speak. He waited until the room quieted, then looked directly at Miguel. His voice was calm but serious. He said that performances like this were rare, not because of technique or perfection, but because of honesty. Simon explained that Miguel didn't just sing a song, he told a story that people believed. He admitted that when Miguel first walked out, he wasn't sure what to expect, but within seconds, everything changed. Simon said he could feel the life behind every note, and that kind of emotion couldn't be taught. The other judges nodded in agreement. One of them spoke about how Miguel's voice carried pain, hope, and resilience all at once. Another judge said it felt like the song had been written for him, as if Hotel California had found a new home in Miguel's heart. The audience applauded again, louder this time, cheering his name. Miguel pressed his lips together, trying not to cry harder, but the tears came anyway. When Simon asked Miguel how he felt standing there, Miguel struggled to find the words. He spoke slowly, his voice shaking, saying that he sang for his family back home in Cebu City, especially for his mother who never stopped believing in him. He said he never thought his voice would reach a place like this. The honesty of his answer only deepened the moment. Simon smiled softly and told him that this stage was exactly where he belonged. Then came the decision. The judges cast their votes one by one, each saying yes without hesitation. With every yes, Miguel's knees felt weaker. When the final vote was announced, confirming that he was moving forward, Miguel covered his face with his hands and sobbed openly. The crowd rose again, clapping, cheering, celebrating a boy whose journey had touched them all. Backstage later, Miguel sat quietly with his guitar resting against his leg. The noise of the theater felt distant now. He thought about the narrow streets of Cebu City, the nights of hunger, the whispered songs by the window. Nothing erased that past, but this moment gave it meaning. He understood that his story was no longer just his own. From that day on, Miguel Santos was no longer just a poor boy singing on the streets. He became a symbol of hope, proof that sincerity can cross oceans and that one voice, when filled with truth, can move the world. And as his story spread, it did exactly what your channel stands for. It truly spread the smile. Globe showing Europe-Africa musical notes.